First, a brief note. Good news from the U.S. House of Representatives. This morning we passed House Concurrent Resolution number 32, sponsored by Ileana Ross-Lehtinen, which states that the Republic of Lebanon is a captive country. The occupation of Lebanon by Syria represents a long-term threat to the security of the Middle East and U.S. efforts to promote regional political and economic liberalization. And it should be the U.S. policy to support human rights and pro-democracy advocates in Lebanon and seek the full restoration of sovereign democratic rule in Lebanon. That was done. My friends, it is the duty and the honor of every child of the American Revolution to stand as one with his fellow human beings abroad who are striving to break the yoke of tyranny and finally, rightfully, breathe free. Thus I extend my deepest gratitude for the privilege of addressing you amidst these heady days of Lebanon's resurrection from Syrian domination. Yet precisely because these are enticing times for all who dreamt to once again see the brilliantine gleam of the Middle East jewel in its homeland, I am compelled to issue a clarion caution. Amidst their cries for liberty, the Lebanese people must never forget their tears of misery, which, while dried by the passing of time, must ever be etched in their hearts to inform their history and instruct their actions. For make no mistake, all of evil's heinous minions opposed to human emancipation want you to fail. These vile tools of totalitarianism well know Lebanese liberty threatens their own hegemony over their regime's oppressed peoples. For truly the roots of Lebanon's cedar revolution can only continue to reach deep into the hearts of every hunted human being and inspire them to hunger and reach for freedom's fulfillment. To date, thankfully, these despots' moves to obstruct sovereignty steps have met with no success. But even as the Syrian menace retreats before the triumphal tide of human hope, the despots obdurately harbor a hideous hope these oppressors and their appeasers and apologists spit forth in the face of the revolution's wake. Specifically, they hope for Lebanon. They raise the grisly specter of a post-Syrian civil war. At bottom, the central tenet of their cynical calculation is this: if in fact nothing brings a divided people together faster than the presence of a common enemy, then nothing will divide a united people faster than the absence of a common enemy. How often we have been forced to endure these oppressors, appeasers, and apologists mealy-mouthed renditions of this pernicious proposition throughout these early days of the Cedar Revolution. How often have we wondered why these oppressors, appeasers, and apologists can still have eyes and yet be so blind to the sight of Christian and Shia, Sunni and Druze, arm in arm in the streets of Beirut, crying out in common cause for their common country. Too often, too agonizingly often, we have done so. And too often, too agonizingly often, we must continue to do so. For I again caution this is but the birth of the Cedar Revolution, the time when the incipient stirrings of sovereignty's sapling strain to break the hoary bonds of a despotic earth. And though the sprout may pierce the soil to touch a new day's nurturing sun, we may not, we must not, consider nor conclude freedom's cedar has arisen until we are assured its divergent roots work as one beneath it. My friends, this is difficult to say, but again, as an American, especially as an Irish American descendant of Catholics from Ulster, I am compelled to say it. Throughout the Cedar Revolution, the courageous Lebanese people must not shrink from their most formidable task. The courageous Lebanese people must honestly accept their anguished history as a once united, once divided, and once more united people. And rather than succumb to the all too human temptations to resent or to forget, and in so doing tragically foster anew the seeds of dissension which once separated Lebanon's sons and daughters in civil war. The courageous Lebanese people must instead humanely embrace their shared suffering and thus transcend themselves and transform their times into one emboldened and blessed by the charitable bonds of liberty. Only thus can be crushed the despot's final designs for dominion, and only thus can be flushed the fledgling blossom of your nation. And let there be no doubt, An imperative step in this imperative process of national reconciliation, resurrection, and redemption is the just and prompt emancipation of Dr. Samir Jaja. As with Nelson Mandela before him, for over a decade, Dr. Jaja has cradled freedom's spark within his enlightened soul, while trapped in the darkened depths of the Syrian-dictated subterranean detention. Now, as his country emerges toward the torch of liberty from beneath the benighted Syrian occupation, none better than Dr. Jaja embodies the unimaginable suffering and unerring strength of the Cedar Revolution. And in consequence, Dr. Jaja's profound personal experience of persecution accords him the singular opportunity to inspire each Lebanese to forgive the sins of the past and to forge the sinews of the united people. Truly, what can better help bind the wounds of a beleaguered people than the healing hands of this tortured body? Indeed, does not the poet's ghost agree, and the Lumar chorus, did not Khalil Gibran write a lifetime ago? You may forget the one with whom you've laughed, but you never forget the one with whom you have laughed. Does not the meter of the poet, the habit of our hearts, guide us to one sublime and electable truth? We are never nearer God's goodness than when we forgive. In closing then, my friends, throughout the long life of the Cedar Revolution, no matter how hard or hurtful, I beseech the Lebanese people to recall the tribulations of their divisions as they rise to the triumph of their destiny. Weep for the past war's widows when you cry out for your unity. Weep for the past war's orphans when you cry out for your liberty. Weep for the past war's childless sires when you cry out for your sovereignty. Yes, weep for all the martyrs murdered by fear and greed and hatred when you cry out for these birthrights of liberty, sovereignty, and unity. And soon, forgiving and forgiven, free and sovereign, you children of the Cedar Revolution will find yourselves weeping the grateful tears of a resplendent and renewed people, crying out to reclaim and redeem the despot-muted freedom of all God's children. Thank you for the honor of being here.